Discover 12 spine-chilling legends of Las Vegas, sinister secrets that haunt and terrorize today. Mia knew Las Vegas was supposed to be a city of dreams. The bright lights and glitzy casinos were meant to welcome fortune, but to her, they felt more like a siren's call, warning of the lurking darkness beneath the glittering facade. Late nights at the diner turned into an exhausting rhythm, made louder by the echo of slot machines and raucous laughter blurring into a relentless noise. Every clink of coins reminded her of the life she had sacrificed to keep her and her son Jake afloat. But lately, something else had come to haunt those neon nights, a creeping unease that wormed its way into her heart. It began with small things, fleeting shadows slipping past their apartment window, unfamiliar faces lingering too long, and a feeling that someone was watching as she served greasy burgers to tourists blissfully unaware of what lay beyond the glimmer. The urban landscape of Las Vegas had shifted into something sinister, and Mia's once hopeful spirit was fraying at the edges. Then there was Jake. Her inquisitive 8-year-old started talking in his sleep, thrashing about, warning her in hushed whispers. "Mommy, don't go near the glowing signs. Stay away from the shadows." Those nights, she would listen from the dim light of the hallway, chilled to the bone. That day, as Mia wiped down the counter, she couldn't shake the fear consuming her. A couple of regulars sat in the corner, their heads huddled together, whispering about a ghostly mobster roaming the streets. "You can feel him, you know. He's drawn to desperation," she heard them say. The hardened details of old folklore cut sharper than she ever expected. A chill ran down her spine. What did they know of her life? Were their tales mere legends or warnings sown from truth? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. With mounting dread weighing on her shoulders, Mia sought comfort amidst the chaos. Yet even the familiar faces of her neighbors transformed into strangers, glances turning sharp with deceit, smiles twisting like vultures circling their prey. She felt the tether to the community slipping. Every innocent encounter turned alarming. Even day-to-day interactions became laced with a sense of foreboding. The pressure mounted as dark figures began appearing outside her window, their intentions obscured under the city's flashing lights. An ache settled deep in her chest. The haunts of her neighbors drifted like thick fog, thickening the air around her. Each night felt like a countdown, a ticking clock echoing ominous warnings. And just when she thought she grasped some semblance of control, Jake's pale face appeared in her mind. The frantic words spilling out in the dark stung her ears. "Mom, please, the shadows want us." Then came the rustle at the door, an invitation to the other side of the glowing darkness. Would she continue to flee from the truth? Or would she confront the very spirit that threatened their fragile existence? Every heartbeat whispered for answers. But Mia knew one thing for certain: the fight for their lives was only beginning. And the chilling legends of Las Vegas were more than just stories. They were her reality. The door creaked, its sound sharp against the quiet night, like a whisper cutting through the unsettling air. Mia's heart raced, thumping hard against her chest. With trembling hands, she reached for the doorknob. The weight of her choices pressed down like concrete, suffocating. She paused, taking a deep breath that only heightened her senses. Outside, the pre-dawn silence was oppressive, the laughter and light of Las Vegas still far away. The shadows seemed to pulse with life, swirling closer, beckoning her to step out. Jake's warning echoed in her mind. Stay away from the shadows. What choice did she have? The narrow hallway felt narrow, each step heavier than the last. As she opened the door, an icy gust swept past her, filling the space with dread. The streetlights flickered ominously, casting halos of pale light that didn't reach the corners where darkness pooled like ink. A figure stood at the edge of the light, a tall, imposing silhouette. A chill shot down her spine. It was hard to tell if it was a person or an apparition, but something primal in her warned her to turn back. "Mommy?" Jake's voice broke the spell, his small frame appearing behind her, eyes wide and glistening with fear. "Don't go out there." He grasped at the hem of her shirt, pulling back gently yet firmly, but the lure of whatever stood outside was magnetic. "Jake, I need to know," she whispered, her voice barely carrying over the distance. The figure shifted, just slightly, as if inching closer on the periphery of the light, a smirk that felt far too inviting. "Mom!" He tugged harder, desperation lacing his words. "We should go back inside, now!" The air crackled with tension. Mia hesitated, torn between the instinct to protect her son and the gnawing need for answers, as maddening as the shadows whispering around them. Suddenly, the figure moved, stepping forward into the light. He appeared sharp-dressed, like a character from an old mob movie, complete with a fedora tilted low. But there was something distinctly wrong. His eyes were too empty, his smile too wide. "Looking for something, sweetheart?" he drawled, his voice a smooth, disturbing purr. "The night can be a bit lonely, can't it? So many secrets." Mia's breath hitched, stomach lurching, as her instinct screamed at her to retreat. "Who are you?" she managed, trying to maintain control while her heart raced like a caged animal. "In this town," he said with a crooked grin, "we all have our ghosts. Make a choice, dear. Cling to the light or dance with the shadows." Jake whimpered softly, peeking from behind her, trembling with palpable fear. The air around them thickened, shadows curling inwards, threatening to swallow them whole. "What do you want?" Mia's voice cracked. There was a gravity in his gaze, a sinister familiarity. She felt it wrapping around her, strangling her resolve. "Only to help," he said, his tone dripping with false sincerity. "Help you find what you desire the most. But tread carefully. Rumors have a way of twisting reality." She saw Jake's eyes darting to the side, as if something else was watching. Another creeping shadow. A low hum began to resonate in her ears, growing louder, blurring the edges of reason. The man in the shadows stepped closer, his presence heavy and intoxicating. "The legends you hear, they're hungry, and they're waiting, just for you." Instinct kicked in. Mia grabbed Jake's hand, spinning around. They were not ready for this confrontation. The future loomed dark, and she could almost feel the spirits closing in, waiting to claim their souls. Each heartbeat echoed her upcoming choice, a desperate dash back inside, or the plunge into awareness. "Mom, run!" Jake's voice pierced through the noise. With no time to lose, they fled back into the apartment, slamming the door shut against the encroaching terror. But as the lock clicked, a resounding crash echoed from the hallway, as if a banshee had screamed. Chills rippled through her, thickening the air around her. What awaited them outside, and how deep did the shadows go? They had barely escaped this time, but Mia felt the shadows tugging at her, the promise of knowledge hanging heavy in the air. What was she willing to risk to uncover the terrifying truth? The moment the door slammed shut, Mia's pulse pounded in her ears. Adrenaline coursed through her veins, a frantic rhythm that filled the quiet of their apartment. She pressed her back against the door, her breath coming in quick gasps. They were inside, safe, for now. But the nagging sensation that something was lurking just beyond the door wouldn't let go. Mom, what was that?" Jake whispered, clutching her leg tightly. His voice quivered, matching the tremor in her own hands. "I don't know, baby," she replied, forcing her voice to sound steady. "I don't know." She peered through the peephole, but the world outside was swallowed by dense darkness. The street lights flickered like dying stars, casting long shadows that twisted unnaturally. The figure from before, the man in the fedora, felt too real, too close. She could almost hear his mocking words echoing in her mind. "Mommy, I don't like it," Jake said again, his small body shaking next to hers. Mia knelt down, forcing herself to meet his frightened gaze. "We're okay, Jake. Nothing can hurt us in here." But the conviction was fading. Suddenly, a soft tapping echoed against the door, like fingers brushing against the wood. Mia's heart lurched. She jumped up and hurried to the window, yanking the curtains to the side. Nothing but night stared back. The empty parking lot was dark and foreboding, devoid of any life. Just a little while ago, they had been streets away from the laughter and thrill of the Strip. Now, it felt like they were in a different world, one where shadows whispered secrets and nightmares were real. "Mom!" Jake's urgent whisper broke her focus. She turned to see fear etched across his face, his small form rigid as he pointed to the hallway. "That wasn't a knock," he said, eyes wide. Mia spun toward the hallway. The door felt like it was growing heavier, pressing against her strength. The low hum from outside had transformed into a chorus of whispers. She cast a fearful glance back at her son. "Stay here, Jake, just for a second." Without waiting for his reply, she crept toward the hallway, the wooden floor creaking beneath her weight. Each step sent ripples of dread deep into her core. She reached the door and pressed an ear against it. Silence. It was almost worse. Then came a soft sigh, heavy and mournful. The air thickened, wrapping around her like a noose. "Leave, before it's too late." Mia stumbled back, heart racing as she fought to catch her breath. It wasn't just in her mind. Something wanted them, needed them. Jake had felt it too. "Mom, let's go. Let's get out of here." He tugged at her sleeve, panic rising in his voice. "No, Jake, we can't just run." But the words felt hollow. Maybe they could leave, escape this nightmare. But where to? With the shadows pressing against every corner of their lives, every shadow melding into another, there was no guarantee of safety beyond this door. She turned back to the hallway, determination igniting within her. "We need to find out what it wants," she said, a fierce whisper that startled even her. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the apartment, rattling the windows. The walls vibrated, and shadows danced along the floor. Mia instinctively pulled Jake closer. What was that? He looked up at her, terror lining his features. "It's not just playing." She stepped back, staring at the flickering light above them, before it exploded into darkness. And then she felt it. A cold breath brushed past her neck, a whisper slithering into her ear. "Will you join us?" Before she could scream, the world around her went black. What waited for them now? The shadows had come to collect their due. Would they become part of the legends that lurked in the dark corners of Las Vegas? As Mia stood paralyzed in the abyss, her mind raced with unspeakable horrors. What had she awakened? And could she still escape before they too were claimed? The darkness swallowed Mia whole, stripping away her senses. The sudden cold felt like ice on her skin, wrapping around her limbs, rendering her immobile. She called out for Jake, but her voice melted into the thick silence that pressed down around them, suffocating and heavy. Her heart thundered, each beat a reminder of their fragile situation. "Jake!" she finally gasped, panic igniting inside her as the shadows seemed to coalesce into pinpricks of gasping faces, flickering just out of reach. The shadows whispered, as if amused by her fear. It was a language foreign and low, a sinister lullaby that danced on the edge of coherence, beckoning her towards something she couldn't comprehend. "Join us." A chorus of voices echoed through her mind, sending chills racing down her spine. Mia forced herself to move, the instinct to shield her son prevailing. She struggled to remember the way back to him, the familiar shapes of furniture now morphing into indistinct forms, twisting into grotesque versions of reality. "Mom!" His small voice pierced through the haze, drawing her like a lifeline. She stumbled toward it, desperation clawing at her throat. The walls felt alive, pressing closer with every step she took, the very air around her thick and suffocating. "Jake!" The name tore from her lips as she rounded the corner into the living room. The dim light of a dying bulb cast a sickly yellow glow across the chaos, illuminating what seemed like a swirling mass of shadow at the center. There he was, standing still, eyes wide and unblinking, as if entranced. A knot of dread twisted in her gut. Whatever held Jake captivated, she could feel it beckoning to her as well. "Jake, come to me," she urged, fear gripping her heart. He blinked slowly, as if waking from a dream. "Mommy, I'm scared." Mia rushed over, scooping him up into her arms, feeling the tremors vibrate through his tiny body. "I know, baby. We need to get out now." They reeled back toward the door, but terror warped her sense of direction. It was like running in place, the exit always just beyond her reach. The walls began to ripple and twist, dark seams lining the plaster like veins, pulsing with unseen life. "Leave before it's too late." The whisper reverberated again, sharper this time. "No!" Mia shouted, clutching Jake tighter. "You can't have us!" The answer came in a feral snarl, low and rumbling like thunder. Shadows gathered and surged toward them, sweeping like a dark tide that filled the room. She felt the temperature drop, her breath swirling out before her like smoke, turning the room into a winter nightmare. In that moment, she glimpsed the edges of faces, twisted, mournful expressions beckoning her to join their forsaken dance. In her mind, she saw flashes of the past, each face a reminder of those who once roamed the streets of Las Vegas, all now lost to darkness. The tension thickened, clawing at her will to fight. "Mom!" Jake's terrified shout broke through her reverie, grounding her once again. "No, we will not lose ourselves. We'll fight." With a surge of power borrowed from pure determination, she turned back to the door, adrenaline fueling her. She thrust her arm out, dread boiling under her skin. Suddenly, she lunged for the doorknob, twisting it with a force she didn't think she possessed. The door swung open, revealing an evil void beyond it, shadows swirling like a storm out to claim them. "Mom, don't!" Jake cried as the wind howled, ready to swallow them whole. They teetered on the edge, caught between two worlds, the safety of the known and the nightmares waiting just a breath away. "Jump!" Mia screamed, her heart pounding, and the shadows lunged forward, bursting into a frenzy. She leapt, pulling Jake with her into the unknown. What awaited them on the other side? And would they escape the grasp of the shadows still hungry for their souls? In the stillness that followed, a haunting silence filled the air, awaiting the next revelation. Bright light pierced through the void, blinding them momentarily. Mia closed her eyes instinctively, gripping Jake as they fell into the unknown. There was a dizzying sensation, like being dragged through a dark tunnel, spinning and twisting, the world collapsing in on itself. Then they landed with a heavy thud on a cold, hard surface. Mia's breath left her lungs. She opened her eyes and pushed herself up, looking around frantically. They were in a dimly lit alley, shadows clinging to the brick walls like cobwebs. It smelled of dampness, decay, and something more sinister. Her heart raced as she checked Jake, who was clinging to her, wide-eyed and quivering. Are we safe?" he whispered, his small voice trembling. "I don't know," Mia replied, her pulse hammering in her ears. The walls seemed to loom closer, closing in on them. The air felt charged, alive. She stood, pulling Jake to his feet. They needed to move, but where? The alley stretched before them, framed by darkness that felt more like a living thing than mere absence of light. Mia's instinct screamed at her to escape, but uncertainty gnawed at her. "Stay close," she instructed, locking fingers with Jake's. Together they stepped into the murky darkness ahead, shadows twisting and creeping out of sight. Each step echoed like thunder in the silence, and it felt as if they were being watched. "Mom, what if that thing follows us?" Jake whimpered. Fear seeped into his words, pulling at Mia's heart. "It won't catch us. We'll be fine, I promise," she lied, pushing her own fear aside to reassure him. The idea of their pursuer gnawed at her insides, uncertainty and dread racing through her. What had they escaped from? Suddenly, a sound echoed behind them, a faint whisper. "You think you can run?" The voice was low, mocking, the edge of it curling into a "ha ha ha." Mia's grip on Jake tightened, a cold sweat breaking out across her skin. "Run!" she shouted, terror propelling them forward. Every heartbeat drummed a chant in her ears. Faster! Faster! They burst through the alleyway's end into a narrow street, illuminated by flickering neon lights. It was surreal. Las Vegas in full bloom, the bright colors and vibrant energy stark against the dread that clung to their hearts. But something felt wrong. The joyful noise of the city faded into a hollow echo, and the crowd around them seemed distorted, faces stretching into unsettling grins, eyes glinting with a knowing darkness. "Look, Mommy!" Jake cried, pointing to a group of people gathered nearby. But as Mia turned to see, they weren't just any partygoers. They stood together in a tight circle, swaying as if in a trance. Her stomach dropped. "No, no!" She pulled Jake away, heart racing. They needed to stay clear from whatever madness had taken root here. It felt like walking through a carnival of horrors where the prizes were souls lost to the dark. "Mommy, please, I'm tired," Jake's voice quivered, but there was urgency now. A prickling sensation crawled up Mia's spine. They couldn't stop. They couldn't rest. She looked back to the alley, but only shadows waited. "We have to keep moving." As they pressed through the streets, Mia felt the cold returning, clenching around her. The whisper started again, swirling in her mind, calling to her. "Join us. Share the darkness." "No!" she screamed. "We will not be part of you." But the shadows seemed to pulse with her very thoughts, hungry and relentless. They reached an intersection, and a red neon sign flickered to life. The end. The irony sent fresh waves of dread through her. What choice could they make when every path felt alike? Behind them, the crowd began to shift, eyes turning toward her, each face transforming into distorted shapes with grinning mouths that opened wide as if to swallow the world. "Jake, we need to hide." But before she could react, they stepped into a new realm of despair, where hope faded into an all-encompassing darkness. What awaited them in this new nightmare?
Would they become part of the shadows, or find a flicker of light to grasp onto just before everything went completely dark? Mia stumbled as the world around them shifted, the air thickening with unnameable dread. She could nearly feel the shadows closing in, hungry for something, anything that they could offer. Shadows writhed along the walls, whispering thoughts that made her skin crawl. "Mommy!" Jake pulled at her sleeve, his eyes wide with fear. "Where do we go?" Every instinct screamed at her to find safety, to escape this suffocating marvel of lights and laughter turned sinister. Yet no matter where they turned, shadows latched on to their heels. It was a foreshadowing of horrors yet to come, a game they weren't ready to play. "Just keep moving," she said, her voice strained but resolute. They dodged through clusters
Of people swaying in that trance, mouths gaping in eerie unison, laughter frozen in grotesque expressions. Each face felt like a mask, empty, waiting. "Mom, I'm scared." Jake's voice cracked, fear breaking through his brave facade. "I know," she said, squeezing his hand tighter. "We'll find a way out, I promise." But her words felt hollow, a fragile wall against an ocean of panic. They turned abruptly, ducking into a narrow side street, its darkness deeper than the rest. Mia hesitated, heart pounding. The shadows here felt different, thicker, swirling like fog. She glanced around, searching for anything that resembled safety, her breath quickening as the whispers grew louder, sharper. "Join us." A chorus echoed back and forth, a chilling fugue that seemed to circle them, mocking her attempts to shield Jake. "Join us, share in our bliss." "Shut up! Just shut up!" she yelled, the sound of her own voice lost in the din. Jake trembled beside her, every muscle tensed, as if expecting the ground to open beneath them. Suddenly, something flickered in the corner of her eye, another sign. It was small and dim, its light struggling to shine through layers of grime. "Help" was scrawled across it in what looked like dried blood, jagged letters almost crumbling into the asphalt. Mia's throat tightened. They weren't the first to tumble into this chaos. The fleeting thought sparked an urgency inside her. "We have to go there," she pointed, adrenaline firing. The sign led them to a door, wooden and battered. Against all logical thought, it seemed a safer option than the chaos outside. She gripped the handle, heart thudding in her chest, and pushed, squinting against the sudden glare of a naked bulb, illuminating a small room, cluttered with boxes and furniture covered in dust. It was a storage space, devoid of life, but pulsing with a strange energy. "Mom, I don't like it here," Jake murmured, his voice tiny, fragile against the vastness of the silent room. "I know, but we need to breathe for a second." She could feel the shadows dancing just outside, pressing against the door as if yearning to invade. Her mind raced. What if this was a trap? What if they were merely delaying the inevitable? As if answering her thoughts, the door creaked ominously, tapping against the frame. The shadows outside stirred with a life of their own. Mia's stomach churned. "Jake, we need to find something, anything, we can use to defend ourselves," she whispered urgently. They were trapped, yes, but perhaps not defenseless. Without warning, the door swung ajar with a horrific squeal. A figure loomed on the other side, half hidden in the darkness, twisting unnaturally. Its face was a mask of terror, flesh warping, as it laughed with joy and malice alike. "Welcome to the end, where the shadows reign," it cackled, stepping into the room, the echoes of laughter trailing like specters. Mia's heart dropped. They'd stumbled into the monster's lair, just when she thought she had found refuge. Shadows surged forward, and it felt as if the walls themselves were closing in. "Run!" Mia screamed, grabbing Jake's hand. They rushed deeper into the room, but nowhere felt safe. Everything felt cursed, tainted by the laughter that grew louder, more inviting. As the shadows wrapped around them, suffocating hope with despair, Mia turned to find a way out. But one question gnawed at her. What if the only escape was to embrace the darkness itself? Mia's pulse raced as they sprinted deeper into the cluttered room. Shadows brushed against her legs, almost playful, as if they were toying with her fear. The air thickened with an oppressive weight, constricting her lungs. She could sense Jake's tiny frame trembling beside her, a stark reminder that they weren't alone in this nightmare. "Where are we going?" he gasped, his breath hitching. Just keep moving," she urged, frantically scanning the room for an exit. The shadows were almost alive now, crawling up the walls, wrapping around boxes and furniture, seeking them out like predators on a hunt. But vision was blurred, and panic swirled like a tempest in her chest. She shoved aside a nearby stack of boxes, hoping to uncover something, anything, that could serve as a lifeline. One box tipped over, spilling its contents onto the floor. Broken toys, frayed clothing, and something that glinted in the dim light. Mia reached down, fingers brushing against the cold metal of a small rusted knife. Its dull blade was not what she had hoped for, but it felt like a lifeline nonetheless. Clutching it tightly, she couldn't shake the reminder of the blood-soaked sign that had led them here. The shadows pressed closer, their whispers now forming words, swirling like a wicked mantra. "You don't belong here. You can't escape. Join us." With her heart hammering in her throat, Mia pulled Jake behind a decrepit couch, hoping the tattered fabric would provide some cover. She held the knife, ready to defend them against whatever approached. Suddenly, the laughter intensified. It echoed against the walls, ricocheting off every surface and invading her mind, cackling, cruel, taunting. "They never leave, you know. Not really." The voice was a sickly sweet croon. "Once the shadows welcome you, you become part of the game." "Mommy," Jake whimpered, squeezing his eyes shut as the laughter rang louder and louder, drowning out the sound of her racing heart. "They're lying. We're going to get out, I swear." She desperately believed her own words. But as she glanced around, the shadows looked deeper, darker, more defined. Figures forming at the edges, a twisted assembly of lost souls. They loomed ominously, faces distorted, reaching toward her, mouths stretching into smiles that looked like a mockery of joy. Every ounce of instinct screamed at her to run. She peeked from behind the couch, spotting a faint light at the far end of the room, another door, maybe their chance at freedom. "Come on," she whispered urgently, motioning Jake to follow her. They darted from their hiding spot, but the shadows lashed out, grasping at Mia's legs. She felt fingers clutching, pulling, trying to drag her down into the darkness. With a fierce scream, she fought against their grip, slicing through the palm of one with the knife. The figure recoiled, but the darkness churned with laughter, thickening as it seemed to rise from the floor itself. "Fleeing won't help," it sang, malicious delight lacing its words. "No!" Mia shouted, yanking Jake forward, adrenaline propelling them toward the light. They broke through the shadows, crashing towards the door, but Jake hesitated. The laughter grew ominous, whispering promises, temptations only a child might surrender to. "Please, Jake, we don't have time." He looked torn between the shadowy figures beckoning him with soft, sweet calls and his mother's desperate urgency. Then, in a chilling moment, the light flickered. Shadows twisted and morphed, and behind them a wall of darkness loomed, hunger gleaming in its form. Mia's voice cracked as she yelled, "Jake, now! We have to go!" Yet she could feel a change in the air, a whisper of fate pulling them back. Was fate even a part of this haunting? As the door creaked open, the shadows slithered closer, closing in around them, threatening to devour them whole. Was it possible that Jake might choose the darkness after all? What if Jake doesn't want to leave? The harrowing thought anchored her dread, chilling her to the bone as the shadows danced ever closer.
And with one agonizing heartbeat, she realized their escape was only a fragile heartbeat away, or just a breath of shadow. "Mia, I don't want to go," Jake whimpered, his small body rigid with indecision. The hollow whispers brushed against their ears, suffocating her resolve. The shadows drew nearer, weaving through the clutter like serpent tongues, searching for weaknesses to exploit. "Jake, please!" Mia's voice trembled, each word a plea laced with desperation. She took a step forward, tugging him gently. But fear held him frozen, caught in a grip far harsher than any shadows. The sleek darkness rippled, swirling in anticipation, and for a moment distance seemed to blur, the doorway almost a memory. Suddenly, the laughter crescendoed, rising like 1,000 demonic bells. "Stay with us, little one. You're perfect for our game." The figures danced closer, their grotesque smiles stretching impossibly wide, while shadows clawed at the edges of reality. "No!" Mia shouted, a piercing cry that echoed through the chaos. She could feel the weight of dread clinging to her like a second skin. Without thinking, she lunged toward Jake, trying to break the dreadful spell that gripped him. Her hands found his shoulders again, shaking him gently. "I need you, Jake. Remember the park? The swings? You wanted to go higher than anyone else. Come with me." For a splitting second, the brightness of recollection flickered in his eyes, but a darker shadow surged, ready to consume it. The laughter shifted gears, taking on a deeper tone. The "darkness whispers truths you can't yet understand." "No, he's not yours!" Mia shouted defiantly, yanking him toward her as she moved. The shadows flared, howling in protest, a storm of anger swirling around them. But with every tug, the grip of the shadows deepened. Mia felt a chilling hand lace around her ankle, cold as ice, and she stumbled, falling to her knees. Jake shrieked, eyes wide as he glanced at the shadows creeping closer, tendrils curling like fog around his little feet. "Jake, please look at me!" Her voice cracked, desperate and raw. She saw the conflict playing across his face. He wanted to stay, but he wanted her too. With a sudden flick of resolve, she pressed the knife against the palm of her hand, drawing blood. "This is for you, this to protect us. If you come with me, I'm strong enough. We'll fight together." As the warmth of her blood dripped onto the floor, the shadows recoiled, hissing and writhing as if scalded by fire. A glimmer of fight ignited in Jake's eyes. "Mommy!" he gasped, reaching for her. Mia seized the moment, yanking him toward the glowing doorway, now so tantalizingly close. But the shadows rallied, anger flaring in their twisted forms. "You're not worthy! You can't escape!" they shrieked, voices merging into a cacophony of betrayal and fury. "Not today!" Mia gritted her teeth, almost tasting the fear, the adrenaline coursing through her veins. They darted forward, the shadows thrashing at their heels, clawing for a grip. But Mia felt herself surge with Jake beside her. They pushed through the door just as a wave of darkness slammed against it, a howling rush of rage and despair. The door splintered but held, and in that moment of trembling understanding, she realized how close they were to becoming the lost, the devoured. Mia stumbled into the next room, a tunnel of steel and concrete that twisted in on itself like the insides of a beast. Behind them, darkness thrashed against the door, rattling with an insane hunger, seeking a way in. "What now?" Jake's small voice trembled, pulling her from the clutches of despair. She could see flickers of light ahead, distant yet hopeful, and her heart ached with both dread and fierce determination. "Just keep running!" she shouted, dragging him after her, but whispers still taunted them, echoing down the unreachable corridors. "You're not safe yet. It's just the beginning." As they raced forward, the shadows coiled tighter in their wake, whispering cold truths that threatened to unravel her courage. In the sudden absence of laughter, a chilling silence filled the air, leaving only an ominous pulse of dread that hovered in the darkness behind them. What awaited them at the end of this twisted path? Was the light merely an illusion, drawing them deeper into the abyss? The light flickered ahead, a ghostly shimmer that seemed to pulse with life, yet felt wrong in its allure. Mia's heart raced, each beat echoing like a
drum in the suffocating silence of the tunnel. It was a mix of hope and terror. That light, it could lead to salvation or to more despair. "Keep close to me," she urged, her grip tightening on Jake's small hand. But he stumbled, fatigue setting in. The strain of the shadows had left him pale and frail, his little body trembling. Just as they approached the light, the whispers from the depths turned sharper, turning into hisses that sliced through the silence. "Turn back," they shrieked, wrapping around Mia like frigid tendrils. "You cannot escape what you are." "No," she cried, the words spilling from her lips like a warning. The walls pulsed with dark energy, shaking as though the tunnel itself was alive, displeased with their intrusion. Each footstep felt heavy, the very ground beneath them conspiring to pull them back. Mia could hear Jake's breath hitch beside her, the fear within him rising to a breaking point. "Mommy, what do we do?" he whispered, eyes wide and shimmering with unshed tears. His fear churned her stomach like a stone. The shadows behind them expanded, a billowing cloud of darkness unfurling, reaching out like desperate fingers. She could almost see faces twisted in agony within it, mouths moving in silent screams. "Keep going," she urged, pushing forward, fear clawing at her heels. But the light was still just a flicker, taunting them with its distance. Her mind raced, desperate for a plan, even as the shadows whispered promises of her ultimate failure, feeding off her doubt. An eerie chuckle drifted from behind. "You think you can outrun what you are? It's in your blood, Mia. You belong to us." The shadows twisted, stretching and weaving, creating figures that mocked her and Jake, smirking with glee as they advanced. "Jake, listen to me." Mia suddenly turned, desperation fueling her voice. "You have to keep your eyes on me. No matter what happens, you stay with me. Understand?" Jake nodded, teeth biting down on his lower lip, fighting back tears. The fear in his eyes pierced her heart, but she pushed that pain aside. They had to escape. With each hurried step, the darkness howled louder, roaring in a frenzy as it surged toward them. The tunnel became a gauntlet, the echoes of anguished cries amplifying the dread. Just as despair threatened to ensnare her, that flicker of light ahead brightened, a beacon against the overwhelming darkness. But the shadows surged, palpable in their rage. "You cannot reach it. You were meant to serve us." Jake gasped, the sound striking out sharp as the shadows reached their dark claws towards him. A primal scream erupted from Mia, raw and visceral. "You don't get to take him!" With sudden ferocity, she pulled Jake closer, shoving him ahead of her. "Run! I'll follow!" The defiance sparked within her, illuminating her fear with a flicker of bravery. He hesitated, confusion flickering across his small features. But then he dashed forward, the light beckoning him. Just as Mia launched forward, she felt an icy grip seize her arm, pulling her back with an agonizing force. "Stay with us!" the shadows hissed, their voices merging, clawing at her mind. She yanked against the grip, feeling her strength diminutive against their hold. "No!" she screamed, anger igniting her determination. With a sudden jerk, she pulled a shard of glass from the ground, a remnant from the chaos. With a fierce snarl, she slashed at their grasp, feeling the darkness recoil. But even as the shadows fell back, a chilling realization surged within her. What if she let Jake go alone? A moment of doubt flickered, temptation weaving through her mind. What if the light was truly an illusion? In the chaos, an unsettling laugh echoed behind her. "You'll choose poorly. You always do," it taunted, and Mia trembled, knowing they were right. She wasn't strong enough to fight this battle alone. The light's beckoning glow became sharper, urging her. But would it guide them to safety or decimate their last hope? "Jake," she yelled, voice piercing the heavy air. "You have to trust me." But as she scampered toward him, the shadows, hungry for victory, slithered ahead like predatory beasts, blocking their path to freedom. Mia could feel the darkness close in, pressing against her mind, whispering sweetly. What awaited them on the other side? Would they face freedom, or would the shadows devour them whole? The shadows surged and twisted, threatening to snuff out the last flickers of hope that lingered in Mia's heart. But she couldn't let it end like this. Not now, not with everything she had fought for. With Jake darting ahead toward the light, she felt a surge of protectiveness, a fierce hunger to defend the bond they shared. "Jake, wait for me," she yelled. He paused, turning to look back, his eyes wide and shining, teetering between fear and determination. "Mommy, come on," his small voice cracked, clearly terrified, yet still hopeful. There was something in his face that ignited a flame within her, a flicker of resilience that reminded her of the quiet moments they spent together, swinging side by side beneath the old oak in the park, sharing ice cream beneath the brilliant sun. Mia tightened her grip on the shard of glass, steadying her resolve. "I'm right behind you." Determined, she pushed forward, her breath hitching as those icy fingers of shadow grasped at her legs, trying to crawl up her body in vain. She swung the glass, slicing through the darkness, forcing the shadows to retreat momentarily. Each step shattered the insidious harmony of voices, whispering lies in her ear, that they didn't belong in the light. "Don't listen to them. They want to keep you," she shouted at the advancing darkness, barking back against the tide of fear that threatened to consume her. Mia's heart raced as she closed the distance to Jake, feeling strength radiate from their connection. He moved closer to the light, and she surged forward, propelled by the momentum of hope and the love that surged between them. The light ahead pulsed brighter, revealing a doorway that glimmered like a star, a soft, inviting glow that whispered promises of safety. They were so close, yet so far. The shadows shrieked in fury, churning towards them, the tortured faces melding into a cacophony of anguish, demanding their due. "Join us," they wailed, groaning senselessly. "No," she cried, digging in her heels. She pulled the shard tighter, summoning courage as she threw herself forward. The darkness sought to reclaim them, swarming in clumps, but Mia screamed, "We are not yours!" With one last desperate lunge, she reached Jake and wrapped her arms around him, the surge of love fueling her once more. "We're going together!" She pounded against the doorframe, ready to plunge into the sunlight that gleamed on the other side. With their bond unyielding, she flung herself forward. Together they broke through, bursting into the light with a finality that struck like thunder. As if recoiling from their defiance, the shadows shrieked and shriveled, dissipating into the twilight as they crossed the threshold. They fell together, tangled in a heap, bathed in the glow of dawn breaking over the horizon. "Mom!" Jake shouted excitedly, his voice stretching into a laugh as the warmth enveloped them. "We did it!" Mia lifted her head, gripping him tightly, tears streaming down her face as relief flooded over her, washing away the panic. The city, once a cacophony of eerie whispers and enveloping dread, sprawled before them, alive and shimmering under the radiant morning sun. Las Vegas, with its wild possibilities and muted sorrows, stood tall like a tree rooted against chaos. "I knew we could do it, baby," she managed, her pulse slow and lighter than before. A weight lifted off her shoulders as the last vestiges of fear faded. They could breathe again, the darkness receding like a nightmare fading at dawn. "Let's go," she whispered, pulling him to his feet. Together they walked forward, toward the cast of the bustling streets, where laughter mixed with the hum of a fresh day full of potential. "What's next?" Jake asked, glancing up at her, a small smile tugging at the corners of his lips, like sun breaking through clouds. Mia grinned down at him. "Whatever we want, we're free now." The shadows would always linger at the edges, lost tales still whispering in the corners of a distracting world, but they had faced them together. As they walked into the shimmering pulse of Las Vegas, their past behind them, Mia felt not just relief, but hope. A promise that even in a city shrouded in legends and ghosts, they could still carve out their own narrative, lit with the brilliance of light, love, and laughter. With the dawn breaking new beginnings, they moved forward hand in hand, embracing the unknown as a journey ripe with possibilities, knowing their shadows no longer held power over them. And in that moment, Mia knew they were safe. If you loved this heart-pounding conclusion, you need to subscribe now. Don't wait even one more second to support the channel so you can discover more exclusive stories. And also, smash that like button now to give the algorithm the boost it needs. We want to hear from you, so flood the comment section with your reactions and theories about this ending. And don't forget to instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who absolutely need to see this conclusion. Together, let's build a community that embraces the thrill of the story.